there's one thing that every single big gacha game does not know how to do right, and most of them don't even have it. And honestly, if they had this, these games would just be absolute cinema. They would be peak. I wouldn't play anything else. And that is actual, well-developed co-op gameplay. But before I get into the weeds about this, I want to show you guys something. Look, he's sleeping right now. You guys can kind of see him. Look down there. Look, I got a little puppy. I got a little Shiba Inu. He is like the cutest thing in the world. He is like so chill. He doesn't bark. He's so easy. I love him. He's the best. So I'm a puppy dad now, so I'm sure you'll be seeing him in plenty of other videos. But yeah, let's talk co-op and how they should do it. Right now, every big gacha game is basically a solo-only game. I know Wuthering Waves and Genshin do have co-op, but the co-op in those games is terrible. Like, you're not really gonna use it for anything because you can't really do anything other than follow your friend around while they open chests, and that's about it. Or of course, do like your daily farming and stuff like that. But there's not like any real engaging gameplay that you can do co-op together. You can't quest together. You can't even do side quests together. And a lot of the puzzles in the world aren't co-opable either. They just completely despawn when you're co-oping with your friends. And from my perspective, I feel like this does nothing but hurt the game because there have been so many times where me and my friends get on and we're like, all right, well, what do we play? It's like, oh man, I'd love if we could co-op Wuthering Waves or co-op Genshin, but like, there's nothing we can really do. Because at least for me, when I get on to play something, I'm usually not doing it by myself. I'm usually getting on to play with friends. And in these gacha games, you can't really play with friends. But just picture a world where Genshin and Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero and Honkai Star Rail and all those games had really good, well-implemented co-op systems. It would be the best. They would be amazing games. If you could quest through these games together with your friends like you can in like Baldur's Gate, for example, dude, it'd be great. And it'd honestly make the pain of doing all those like unvoiced world quests that are just yap sessions a lot less painful if you could be doing it with a friend. And honestly, they should just restructure all those quests altogether because they're just absolute pain to do. But if these games had real co-op where you could explore together, all of the chests in the world were instanced to you so you could claim them while in co-op, you could do world quests and side quests together and progress through the main story together, like there'd be so much more to do. And I'm a firm believer that these games would be much better experienced side by side with a friend of yours. And I know if they were to do that, it would pose a couple of issues. One being some of the world puzzles, honestly, most of the world puzzles were not designed to be done in co-op. I mean, you can see in Wuthering Waves, there are some puzzles you can straight up cheat if you have a friend in your world, but there are many ways you could code around this without completely blocking access to this stuff altogether. Or the longer method would be to come up with new ideas or redesign the existing puzzles to fit co-op. Then the other issue that I don't personally care about, but I know some people will want to just gatekeep this, and that's the difficulty of the challenging content like Spiral Abyss and, Tower of Adversity, Pure Fiction, all those end game modes, especially the tactical holograms in Wuthering Waves, because they're meant to be at least somewhat difficult, right? You can't just breeze through these. But I feel like a really easy way you could do this while also preserving the difficulty of the solo challenge would be lock certain rewards behind a solo completion. So if you want everything, you have to stop being a shitter and actually complete it yourself. But one thing they would have to worry about when you start implementing more co-op features is you don't want to make the game too co-op reliant, because if the game becomes reliant on co-op and you kind of have to have a friend to do everything, that gets kind of annoying. Actually, no, it gets very annoying. If I can't solo anything and I have to have a co-op partner, that sucks. But at the very least, if these games were optimized for co-op and co-op friendly, that would just be a good thing. And that's why I think instancing loot and instancing puzzles and basically instancing everything to your world state, essentially, would be the way to do this. And you can even scale up the difficulty of enemies and health bars and things like that when people are joining in co-op. That way it keeps everything balanced enough, right? It would just add that extra layer to the gameplay. It would let you do things in like Spiral Abyss and endgame content that you wouldn't have been able to do before. Like, you could run really unique team comps because you can have two characters on field at the same time. It just opens the door for more experimenting and more fun to be had. And you could just goof off and do stupid shit. Like, who doesn't love that? But dude, co-op endgame would be so much more fun than just doing it by yourself, because I like a challenge at the end of the day, but once you do the same content, 20 times by yourself, it gets really boring. And I just think in general, the more co-op friendly these games are, the better. I don't really see any real downsides to it. It would just incentivize me and my friends to play it more because we'd be able to play it together all the time, instead of just being in Discord calls, playing it by ourselves and streaming our gameplay to each other. And the thing is, it feels like good co-op is just being dangled right above our heads where we can't reach it, because Kuro has made some pretty decent co-op events in Wuthering Waves. It's like, oh my god, it's so close yet so far. And there were games like Grand Blue Fantasy Relink that were fully co-opable, that were so much fun. The only downside with that game is it wasn't really live service, so there's not really any more content to do in that game anymore. But if we had that kind of co-op, that level of co-op in a gacha game that was constantly updating, dude, please. I just feel like that's the one giant thing that all these games are missing. And hopefully one day, even though I'm not really betting on it, they'll finally add co-op to one of these games, or maybe a new gacha game will come out that'll actually have decent co-op. Hopefully.